Dear listeners, welcome to History with Herodotus, where we embark on a journey through the annals of time, uncovering the secrets of our shared human experience. Today, we find ourselves in the Emerald Isles, surrounded by the lush landscapes and storied history of Ireland, as we delve into the fascinating tale of the Easter Rising. This pivotal event, which took place in the early 20th century, was a watershed moment in Irish history, marking a turning point in the nation's struggle for independence. As we begin our exploration of this complex and captivating topic, let us first set the stage by examining the precursors to the Easter Rising. It is here, in the earliest stirrings of rebellion, that we find the roots of this seismic event. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Ireland was a land of simmering discontent, with many of its citizens chafing under the yoke of British rule. The seeds of resistance were sown in the fertile soil of Irish nationalism, nourished by the writings of visionaries like Charles Stewart Parnell, who advocated for home rule, and the activism of organizations such as the Land League, which fought for agrarian reform. The year 1882 marked a significant milestone in this journey towards rebellion, with the establishment of the National League, an organization dedicated to promoting Irish self-governance. This movement gained momentum in the following years, with key figures like Michael Davitt and Charles Stewart Parnell playing instrumental roles in shaping the nationalist agenda. E1. The 1898 centenary celebrations of the United Irishmen Rebellion further galvanized the Irish people as they began to re-examine their history and reaffirm their commitment to independence. As we wander through the streets of Dublin, we find ourselves immersed in a city alive with revolutionary fervor. The Gaelic revival, which emerged in the late 19th century, had sparked a renewed interest in Irish language, literature, and culture. This cultural awakening helped to foster a sense of national identity, as the Irish people began to assert their distinctiveness from British culture. In this vibrant city, we encounter key figures like Patrick Pearse, a young educator and writer who would later become a leading figure in the Easter Rising. Pearse's involvement with the Gaelic League and his advocacy for Irish language rights reflect the growing desire for self-expression and autonomy that defined this period. The Irish Republican Brotherhood, a secretive organization dedicated to establishing an independent Irish republic, also began to gain traction during these years. As the plans for rebellion took shape, the stage was set for a dramatic confrontation between the forces of nationalism and the British authorities. The 1912 introduction of the Third Home Rule Bill, which proposed limited self-governance for Ireland, only served to intensify the divisions between Unionists and Nationalists. The subsequent formation of the Ulster Volunteer Force in 1913, a militant organization opposed to Home Rule, further complicated the already volatile situation. In the years leading up to the Rising, Ireland had become increasingly politicized, with organizations like the Irish Volunteers and the Citizen Army emerging as key players in the struggle for independence. The 1916 Rising would be the culmination of these efforts, as a coalition of rebel groups, including the Irish Republican Brotherhood, the Irish Volunteers, and the Citizen Army joined forces to challenge British rule. As we delve deeper into the historical context of the Easter Rising, it becomes clear that this event was not an isolated incident, but rather the result of decades of simmering discontent and organized resistance. The year 1916 marked a turning point in this struggle, as the rebels prepared to take up arms against their British oppressors. And so, dear listeners, we find ourselves at the threshold of this pivotal moment in Irish history. The earliest stirrings of the Easter Rising have been set in motion, and the course of events is about to unfold with breathtaking rapidity. Join me, if you will, as we step into the midst of this maelstrom and explore the tumultuous events that would forever alter the trajectory of Irish history. Dear listeners, welcome back to History with Herodotus, as we continue our journey through the annals of Irish history and delve deeper into the fascinating tale of the Easter Rising. As the morning dawned on April 24th, a sense of anticipation and trepidation hung in the air. The rebel leaders, including Patrick Pearse, James Connolly, and Eamon de Valera, had meticulously planned their uprising, but they knew that the odds were stacked against them. The British authorities, with their superior numbers and firepower, seemed almost invincible. Yet, the rebels were driven by a fierce determination to claim their freedom and forge a new nation. The General Post Office on O'Connell Street became the epicenter of the rebellion, as Pearse and his comrades seized control of this strategic location. The building's imposing facade, with its grand columns and ornate detailing, seemed an apt symbol of the rebels' aspirations for a proud and independent Ireland. From this vantage point, they proclaimed the establishment of the Irish Republic, with Pearse reading out the Declaration of Independence to a gathered crowd. As news of the rebellion spread like wildfire through the city, other rebel groups sprang into action. The Citizen Army, led by James Connolly, occupied key locations such as City Hall and the Four Courts, while the Irish Volunteers secured strategic strongpoints like Boland's Mill and the Mendicity Institution. The sound of gunfire and explosions echoed through the streets as the rebels clashed with British troops and police. The British response was swift and brutal. Troops were rushed to Dublin from across the country, and a naval gunboat, the HMS Helga, was deployed on the River Liffey to shell rebel positions. The city became a battleground, with snipers and machine guns exchanging fire amidst the urban landscape. Civilians caught in the crossfire suffered terribly, as their homes and businesses were reduced to rubble. Despite being vastly outnumbered, the rebels fought valiantly, employing guerrilla tactics and exploiting the British military's weaknesses. They established a network of barricades and strongpoints, using Dublin's narrow streets and alleyways to their advantage. However, as the days passed, the British Army began to gain the upper hand, slowly but surely pushing the rebels back. One of the most iconic moments of the Rising took place on April 29th, when Pearse and his comrades were forced to abandon the General Post Office due to intense British shelling. As they retreated through the smoke-filled streets, they were met with fierce resistance from British troops. The rebels fought bravely, but their numbers were dwindling, and their ammunition was running low. The eventual surrender of the rebel leaders on April 29th marked the end of the Easter Rising, at least in its military phase. As the surviving rebels were taken prisoner and marched away to internment camps, the city lay in ruins, with over 400 civilians killed or wounded. The British authorities, shaken by the ferocity of the rebellion, vowed to crush any further dissent. But the embers of the Rising would continue to glow, inspiring a new generation of Irish nationalists to take up the fight for independence. As we pause to reflect on these momentous events, it becomes clear that the Easter Rising was more than just a failed military insurrection. It was a declaration of intent, a statement of Ireland's unwavering desire for self-determination. Though the rebels may have lost the battle, they had ignited a flame that would burn brightly in the years to come, illuminating the path towards Irish freedom. Join me, if you will, as we step into the uncertain world of post-Rising Ireland, where the echoes of rebellion still lingered, and the dream of independence remained an unyielding beacon, guiding the Irish people towards a brighter future. Dear listeners, welcome back to History with Herodotus, as we conclude our journey through the annals of Irish history and explore the aftermath of the Easter Rising. The British government's response to the Rising was severe. Martial law was declared, and a massive crackdown ensued, with over 3,000 people arrested and interned without trial. The executions of 15 rebel leaders, including Patrick Pearse, James Connolly, and Eamon de Valera, sent shockwaves throughout Ireland, galvanizing public opinion against the British authorities. The brutality of these reprisals only served to fuel the flames of rebellion, as many Irish people began to see the Rising not as a failed insurrection, but as a heroic struggle for freedom. The aftermath of the Rising also saw a significant shift in Irish politics. The once dominant Irish Parliamentary Party, which had advocated for home rule within the British Empire, was eclipsed by the more radical Sinn Féin party, which sought full independence for Ireland. This seismic shift in the political landscape paved the way for the 1918 general election, where Sinn Féin candidates swept to victory, winning 73 out of 105 seats. The newly elected MPs, however, refused to take their seats in Westminster, instead forming a separate Irish Parliament, known as the First Dáil. The establishment of the First Dáil marked a significant milestone on Ireland's path to independence. This fledgling government, with Eamon de Valera as its president, set about establishing a new administrative framework for the country, including a judicial system, a police force, and a network of local councils. Although the British authorities refused to recognize this new government, it operated in parallel with the existing British administration, gradually eroding their authority. As we reflect on the Easter Rising's legacy, it becomes clear that this pivotal event was not just a failed rebellion, but a catalyst for Ireland's eventual independence. The courage and sacrifice of the rebel leaders inspired a new generation of Irish nationalists to take up the fight for freedom. The Rising also drew international attention to the Irish cause, with many around the world beginning to see the struggle for Irish independence as part of a broader movement for self-determination. In the words of W.B. Yeats, the famous Irish poet and playwright, all changed utterly. A terrible beauty is born. The Easter Rising was indeed a turning point in Irish history, marking the beginning of a new era of struggle and resistance against British rule. As we conclude our journey through this pivotal moment, we're reminded that the power of rebellion and the human spirit can shape the course of nations and forge a new future. And so, dear listeners, as we bring our exploration of the Easter Rising to a close, I'd like to leave you with a quote from Patrick Pearse, one of the rebel leaders. "When you strike at the heart of a nation, you will find that it is made of stone and that its core is unshakable." The Easter Rising may have been crushed in its initial stages, but the dreams and aspirations of the Irish people proved unshakable, ultimately paving the way for Ireland's hard-won independence. Thank you for joining me on this journey through history with Herodotus. Until next time, farewell. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.